Eyes wide open.
If you think Dogman is just a legend, keep watching.
It's called the Dogman. It lurks along liminal lands, river crossings, and graveyards. If you're out in the night, in the dark, it will hunt you. It will terrorize you. And it will feed on that fear.
If you've ever wondered what really growls in the wilderness after sunset, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
And we were walking down there, and this is what was cool. You hear some people, oh man, what do you think Bigfoot and Dogman would do if they met each other? Well, as we're walking down the bottom of this hill, setting these cameras, that the same day I told you we had all the cameras that got blinked out, all of a sudden here comes Dogman walking up the hill, and he's got 3 Bigfoot behind him. He's actually leading the Bigfoot up the hill, and big Bigfoot. And then there's a baby Dogman over there, and then there's a mama Bigfoot totally behind. You can tell, you can see the anatomically correctness. And so she's got a juvenile, and she's pushing it up the edge of this pine plantation. And here's the other one. Then whenever we stop, and Stephen, he goes, stop, man, stop. And we're always messing with each other. I said, man, what am I doing? He goes, no, stop. So I stop, and sure enough, we look, and then there's that Dogman, and then there's the Bigfoot behind it. So all of a sudden, the Bigfoot just squat down into the brush, and you don't see them anymore, but you still see the Dogman, and then you see a little baby Dogman that goes over and hides underneath a leaning log. Right.
And I don't know why, but that Dogman is pure terror. Mm-hmm. I guess it's the aura and the appearance of it. It just exudes like kill and maim and torture and I don't know, all the bad things you can think of. That's just what it exudes. It's a scarier cryptid for sure. It's way worse. It's just so evil is all I got out of it. It's just a pure evil entity.
What did your daughter say, or did she say anything when she saw it?
At that age, my daughter liked watching the Van Helsing movie that was out way back then. The one that had like the werewolves and all. You probably know the movie. She said it looked like one of the werewolves from Van Helsing. She goes, Dad, it looked just like what we saw when we watched the Van Helsing movie. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it did. Except it was black. Those were more gray looking, but this creature was black, like a shiny black coat, big ears like a German Shepherd. You could see it had big teeth, and it just stared at us. She didn't really know what to think. She just kind of like was in awe, like her mouth was wide open, and she's staring at this thing, looking past me. She saw it first, too. I wouldn't have even known it was there. I don't know what made her turn around or why she looked. Maybe she was just looking to see where I was behind her and noticed this thing behind us. But to me, it's the oddest thing because I would have never expected to see a creature like that where we saw this.
When you say you could see its teeth, was it smiling or did it, what?
I don't know that I'd call it a smile, but it had its mouth open enough that I could see it had canine teeth. Its teeth were probably like that, roughly. Its eyes were considerably bigger than a person's, like that big. And it looked like something that you would not want to ever mess with. You know what I mean? Like the biggest, strongest person would be no match for this, in my opinion. And again, our view was unobstructed. There was nothing in the way. It sounded like it was super mad. That was the scariest part. It was letting out this loud growl. And it sounded like this thing, if it got a hold of you, who knows what it could do to you, is what I thought to myself.
Canoeing in Florida's Lettuce Lake Park, Matt thought he saw a bear. But in this 240-acre park, bears usually avoid the swampy waters. Captured on camera, the creature appeared to be large and covered in dark fur. It remained still, blending seamlessly into its surroundings. As Matt observed the creature, it seemed aware of his presence, walking towards deeper water before vanishing without a trace. Was it a cryptid?
The head on it was this big. It was at least 6 feet long. And combined now with the 5-inch prints I found, I don't know if it is a dog man. It's a big, big wolf.
Yeah.
And it was not afraid of a car. And I see coyotes all the time. I've got them on my farm. They usually run. They don't make a lot of eye contact. This thing, I will never forget the eye contact it made with me. It looked in my car like, I'm fixing to grab your car. And it kind of reinforced what I always heard. Don't be out there at night.
What have you experienced?
I've never told this story before.
I'll tell it. It happened. It's true. God's my witness. I was at Burrow Creek, almost to Wickiup. Go to Wickenburg, then Wickiup is about half there. You'll find it on a map. And that bridge there, that canyon, a lot of death has happened there. And, I was there about 2:00 in the morning coming back from Phoenix, and I was out there with my dog on the edge overlook. I was taking a break. I was so tired, and I had my knife on me. I carried a knife back in the day. I was shoved in the front of my pants here. And it was about a 3/4 moon night, maybe. And it was nice out first, and I started feeling creepy. Something was bad. Something was wrong. It was definitely a well-lit night. And it went from feeling awkward and weird to the hair on the back of my neck to I'm in imminent danger. And I was looking around, and I looked, my dog was under the truck. And I thought, something's going on here.
Now, let's go ahead and give the skeptics their second shot. And some would say that this is a pretty good argument. You have one person in the house that gets frightened. Then she tells everybody else. And then, pretty soon, you have the whole family jumping at the furnace kicking on. As you well know, fear is definitely contagious. So, I want you to watch what Jonathan's wife does. Jonathan, he's away at work. It's right after midnight. And his wife, she cut the kitchen lights off, and she started heading upstairs toward the bedroom. Then she looked out this window, and she noticed movement in their backyard. And she wanted to get a closer look, so she walked over to that window. And standing upright, leaning against this tree, was what she called a huge wolf-like animal. She said that it had long hair covering its entire body, and it was standing on 2 legs. Not only that, she said it was looking directly at that house. Then, after a while, it turned and it walked slowly into the tree line. It didn't walk on all 4s. She said it walked on 2 legs the whole time. Now, here's what she did with that. She didn't call Jonathan. She didn't tell her boys. She didn't tell anybody. For 3 straight days, she kept that to herself. She said that she was trying to decide whether she had just seen some animal in her backyard or whether her own mind had done something to her that she couldn't trust anymore. Now, I want you to go ahead and check this part out. Around 10:30 on a bright Saturday morning, Jonathan's teenage son, his name was Paul, he noticed movement in that same backyard. He didn't know what to do, so he decided to call his brother Michael to come over and check it out. And both of those boys said that they saw the exact same massive wolf-like animal that their mom saw. And they said the same thing that their mom did. It didn't drop down on all 4s, but it took off really fast and it ran on 2 legs to that same tree line. Now, their mother, she wasn't home when these boys saw that. And when she got back a couple hours later, those boys, they didn't keep it a secret like she did. They told her what they saw. And remember, she never told those boys anything. So, to me, the fear contagion argument, it doesn't work. They didn't know that their mom saw this thing. To me, you can't use that as an argument because the person who was primed to be scared, she didn't say anything for 3 days. And the 2 people that weren't primed at all were the ones that came to her. Now, I understand that does not tell us what was in that yard. And honestly, I can't tell you what those 3 people saw. I know what I think it might be.
There have been numerous alleged sightings of a dark, predatory creature known to locals as the Dogman.
Researchers spent years pinning every major Dogman sighting in northern Michigan to a single map, expecting the marks to scatter the way rumors always do. They did not scatter. They tightened into one narrow corridor of forest, a shape no hoax, no prank, and no viral song from the 80s should ever have been able to draw. And when the people who built that map finally stepped back and saw what the pattern resembled, several of them stopped talking about it in public.
I was a trial lawyer for 17 years, and then I eventually became judge. I deal with evidence. And what is evidence? I know what I saw. No one will ever convince me that I didn't see what I saw.
They were not unnerved by what the witnesses claimed to have seen. They were unnerved by the one detail that every single account shares. Before America, reports of creatures like Bigfoot still surface somewhere in this country almost every week. What almost nobody knows is that deep in the forests of the northwestern lower peninsula of Michigan, there is another figure, older and in some ways stranger, described in nearly the same words since long before the song, before the film, before anyone had a name to give it. This is not a campfire story. It is a question that has gone unanswered for more than 130 years, and the map only made it louder. Because before the United States existed, before the first French explorer ever pushed a canoe into the Great Lakes, this thing was already in the forest. In the stories the Anishinaabe carried down for generations, there was a stretch of woodland that elders taught their children to leave alone if they ever felt it was near. They did not call it just a large animal, though it was large. They did not call it just a dangerous predator, though it had the jaws and the claws of a wolf. They described it with one detail that made everyone who heard it go quiet. It walked wrong. Its body held the full anatomy of a great wolf, a long head, deep jaws, a coat of coarse fur, 4 limbs tipped with claws. But it did not move the way a wolf moves. It stood. It walked upright on 2 hind legs, a measured gait, an even rhythm, a steady stride. Not the clumsy sway of a bear rearing up to catch a scent. When it stopped, and the old accounts say it stopped often, it stopped the way a person stops, watching, weighing, deciding. The tradition keeps coming back to the eyes. They looked straight at people. They did not slide away the way a wild animal's eyes slide away. They did not trip that ancient alarm in a human being to run. The thing just stood there and looked back, the way only something aware of its own looking can look. The elders taught that this was the most dangerous sign of all, not the growl, not the crouch of an animal about to charge, the calm, the calculation. A real animal facing a person picks one of 2 roads. It attacks, or it leaves. This thing did a third thing, something no animal in the Michigan forest should be able to do. It considered, and once it had considered, it chose its own moment to step back into the trees, leaving the witness frozen, sometimes for minutes, too scared to move. This was not the Wendigo. The Wendigo belongs to winter, to hunger, to starvation, a figure of the spirit world entirely apart from this. This thing did not live in the spirit world. It lived in the physical forest, the same layer as the bears and the wolves, and it broke every rule those animals follow. The people who told these stories did not call it a monster for frightening children. They used names closer to the thing that walks like a person, or the thing in the woods that does not belong. The way they spoke of it sounded less like a fable and more like a warning about a real hazard out in the landscape, something to recognize, something to avoid. And then, in 1887, 2 lumber workers in Wexford County walked into that same forest and came back out with the very same account, having never heard a word of the older tradition. The Wexford record. They were immigrant laborers working logging shifts, most of them barely literate, the kind of men who could not have lifted folklore out of a book if they tried. They just reported what they saw. A creature close to 2 meters tall, shaped like a wolf, upright on its hind legs, looking right at them for maybe half a minute, then turning on its own and disappearing into the trees without one sign of aggression. What one of those men told a local newspaperman afterward was not that the size scared him. The size was not the worst part. The worst part was the way it looked at them. It looked at them the way one person looks at another in the second, before deciding whether to speak. That account went into a small local paper, and then it sat silent in the archives for the next 99 years. Think about the shape of that for a second. 2 groups of people, separated by centuries, no clear thread connecting one to the other, describing the exact same being down to the exact same detail. The body of a predator, the patience of something that thinks.
Feel it standing over me on the single track. I know it was looking down at me. I could feel it breathing. And I don't even know how long the encounter was. I really don't. In my head, afterwards, when I thought about it, I just thought, why don't you just get this over with? What are you waiting for? Like, it's torture. I was too afraid. I can't, like I said, I can't even describe to you the fear. And I thought I was going to die. My heart was pounding. I could hear this thing breathing. I just couldn't look at it. What I said to you, and the thing that I didn't tell you in the email was, I didn't even know that I had peed my pants. I didn't even know that. It's amazing. I didn't even know that. I wet myself. I heard it do, I couldn't talk to anybody about it because my best friend and my husband made fun of me. I thought, these are the people that I love the most. If they're going to do that to me, there's no way I'm telling anybody what happened. So I filed it away. But then I went down the hole of trying to figure out what the hell was that. It just didn't, it felt supernatural. That's the only way I can describe it to you. I heard it, boom, when I landed on the trail. I felt like I was an insignificant nothing. It could have killed me. I really felt like my life was in danger. I've never felt like that. We've hiked all over. I've come across a grizzly. That was really scary. Nothing compared to that fear that I felt. I really focused on the legs because I couldn't compute that. I did look up at the face. It was, like I said, a dog's face with the really pointed ears. It was tall and thin, and it had really short, shiny, sleek fur. That's the only way I can do. Like, it almost looked like, the only way I can describe it is a 3D image.
Like like a hologram.
Yes, that's what it looked like. Like, it was so perfect. The blackness of it and the short fur. It was this. It almost looked like a Doberman. Like, and I remember the legs because I was like, what? They were really muscular. The waist part, like this part here, like it was just ripped.
It was a regular hike and until it wasn't. I turned my head back around and what I see, this thing should not exist, man. It shouldn't be there. Like, it's on all fours at this point. I am rooted to the spot. I cannot move because I'm in sheer terror. As soon as it walks out, I can instantly see its head. It had a barreled chest, and I noticed that when it walked out. And the other thing I noticed is its eyes. It was an amber color eyes, but there was something about the eyes, man, that were just terrifying and intelligent. When it stands up, I realize that it has hands like you and me would have hands. It puts its hands up. Oh my God. It puts its arms up and it starts wiggling its fingers. And I'm looking at its eyes and its eyes are looking at me. I think it's about to attack me. I think that I am dead in the water. I truly thought that was it for me. I was so close to it. I saw the back of its throat. That's how close this thing was to me. And I in my mind, I'm like, if I run, I'm done. If I do anything else, I am done. And after that, it just goes back on all fours, snarls at me, and walks back in the woods.
We had a noise come in by those oak trees that was just, it was, Tony, it was hideous, and it was a growl. And it was a growl, and it was so intense that it rattled the inside of my chest cavity. And it just was it was hideous, man. I mean, I've been on the farm, all my life, and I've seen all different kinds of farm animals. I've hunted bear, I've hunted deer, I've seen all kinds of different things. This was not a typical growl. I've heard bear growls. That's not what this was. And it was so intense that it did something to me, and I could tell that it was affecting my friend. And it rattled the inside of my body, and I began to notice that it caused my heart to speed up. And it was pumping, and I was getting really excited, but it was an uncomfortable feeling that I cannot describe. But it was like it affected my breathing rate. It was affecting how my heart, and I began to feel nauseous. I began to feel very sick to my stomach, and it became more intense. And then it was almost like I couldn't hear the growl, but I could still feel it inside of me. And it got terrifying. It was terrifying. That's when I felt like I was frozen, that I could not move. I could not move my legs. I couldn't turn around. I could see Harry beside of me, and he was in the same shape. And as a matter of fact, I noticed, and it must have been me as well, but when I looked at my friend, I could tell that he was slumped in his shoulders and was kind of looking straight down. And And so all this is going on, and I could still hear objects and things around me. But if you've ever had what you call tunnel vision, and that's what I felt like I had tunnel vision. Things were sped up around me, but yet I was in slow-mo. I was just in slow motion and could not do anything. That's when I heard something come in on the trail beside of us. The same trail that I had used to walk in from my walk beside the creek. And the creek come up behind our camp. Well, there was something coming. I could hear the steps. To be honest, I felt something coming. It was a feeling that I cannot describe, and it felt like, hey, something is coming. And in the fire glow of the camp and in the lantern, which was adjacent to us, I could see movement. And I felt something, and I kept looking, and I'm looking, and I'm catching something walking in, and it is bipedal. And I guess the thoughts of, is this beast, is this man? I don't know what that it is. And as it begins to get closer, I see a bipedal canid type wolf-like beast. 2 legs, and it's walking towards me. I can't move. I can't use my legs. I can't use my arms. This intense feeling. I'm almost can't breathe. It has sped my rate of breathing up like I had run a race. And this thing's getting closer to me. And as it gets closer to me, I notice the ears on it are erect, and they're like pointed towards me. And it's staying outside the glow of the fire, but it's getting closer and backing away, coming back, going back and forth. And it's pacing left and right. And then it walks in. And as it walks in, I can see this thing sniffing the air. And it's almost as if it's sniffing me. And I look back now, I wonder if it was trying to sniff fear. And then it grins at me. This thing exposes its teeth.
This is going to be one of the scariest stories I've ever told, and it takes place in Ohio 30 years ago. Now, this story can be found on the Belief Hole, and it's by a judge in Ohio. So this person has nothing to gain from making up this story, and they only have something to lose. And it's about this judge's experience when he's a teenager. It was a hot summer night back in 1980, and the future judge was training for a cross-country meet. So it was really hot in the daytime. He figured he would wait to do his running at night. And when you run out in the country at night like he was doing on Highway 4, the streetlights are pretty far apart. As you might notice, some of the streetlights aren't even on. The next streetlight is way down the road. But the judge was jogging. He started off on a light jog. He was just getting warmed up, getting stretched. And as each leg of the darkness, he just thought to himself how good the night air felt. He couldn't do this training in the daytime. Tonight, he was scheduled to run 7 miles. Now, he had put this off, so it had gotten pretty late, and it was about 9:30 p.m. when he hit about his first mile into this. Now, where the judge lived, it was nothing but long state highway and cornfields as long as you could see. In fact, it looked like an ocean of cornfields. So as the judge was jogging, he was just thinking about how, great life had been here lately. He was going to be going to college next year. Everything was going his way. It looked like he was going to get that scholarship for the track team. Life couldn't be better. And as he's jogging, he was thinking, this would be nice to have my music. But tonight he didn't have his Walkman with him. And of course, this was before cell phones and other technology that we have today. So as he's jogging, his breath's getting kind of heavy. He's getting warmed up. He's about to pick up the pace when he realizes that he's not running alone. To his right was nothing but a cornfield. To his left was nothing but a cornfield. And he couldn't see another street light for about another 50 yards. And as he's jogging, he's looking. He notices the corn is jostling. It's moving around. He's thinking, is that a dog? Maybe it's a coyote. And then as he's going, he's thinking, well, Halloween's another month and a half away. Surely no one's playing a prank yet. And he's looking and he can just tell the corn's moving, but he's finally made it to that next street light. And that's when he gets the glimpse of a shadow moving between the corn. Now he's still at a decent jog, so he's thinking it'd be pretty easy to keep pace with him if it was a person. Maybe it's an animal. He goes. It's another 100 yards of darkness, just like what I'm experiencing right now. But he can tell there's light up ahead. As he makes it to the next ring of light, he gets another good look at this thing, and he sees that this shadow is a big, hulking shadow. And he realizes, oh my gosh, this is a person. At worst case scenario, this is a bear. He's ruled out dogs, coyotes, wolves. There's not even wolves in that area, but the thought crosses his mind. This is a person or a bear running next to me. And to his right, it's only like 20, maybe 15 yards away. It's only about 3 rows into the corn on the other side of the highway. And he's thinking to himself, I know I'm fast. So what I'm going to do is when I hit this next street light, I'm going to get another good look at it. He's going. And then he sees it. He sees the silhouette of what has to be a huge person, and it is definitely on 2 legs. And he goes, oh my gosh, this guy's after me. This guy's chased me. There's no way somebody be playing a prank like this. He's been chasing me now for about 200 yards and he's staying in the corn. So he says, I'm going to pick it up the speed as fast as I can. He's not wanting to let the person know that he has spotted them. So he gradually picks up that speed. And he's just thinking, I know they can't keep pace with me. I know they can't keep pace with me. And even if they can keep pace with me, they can't keep pace with me for long. I'm almost a collegiate level athlete. There's no way they're staying pace with me. But they did. And he's thinking, this can't be human. Not only are they keeping pace with me, a fast individual for a long distance, he's been keeping this pace up for about 1/10 of a mile at this point. He's exhausting himself. The person or thing is running in corn on uneven terrain and still being able to keep pace with him. That's why he knows at this point, this has to be something supernatural. This can't be a person anymore, right? There's no way. So this continues because there's nowhere to go. What are you going to do? Turn around and go back home? You're more than a mile away from home at this point, about 2 miles in actually. There's only corn on the left, corn on the right. He knows my buddy's house is about 1/10 of a mile away up there. Worst case scenario, if they're not home, because it was a Friday night after all, if they're not home, I'll climb into his tree. When we were kids, we used to play in that tree house all the time. I'll climb this tree. I hadn't been there in a few years, but I'll do it. That's where I'm going to climb this tree up. And he knows this is the next house. There's no other houses before his friend's house. So he's looking over. He's looking over. He's looking over. He's wanting to be conspicuous because he doesn't want the person or thing to know that he knows it's there. Because once he notices that it notices him, it might just go ahead and give up the facade and get him. So he's wanting to get to safety first. So what does he do? He makes it to the friend's house. And he's looking, there's no lights. Oh gosh, he can see it coming up. There's no lights on it. And he decides once he gets level with this tree, he's going to just scale this tree. Right when he gets level with the tree, he realizes there's been a huge brush pile by the road. They had just recently trimmed the trees and he could not believe his luck. There's not even limbs for him to grab onto to climb. And he just panics. At this point, even though he's hot from running, his blood just runs cold. He's pale as a ghost. He knows the next option is about another 1/10 of a mile away. It's the next house, and it's his other friend's house. And he tells himself that at my next friend's house, I don't care if I have to jump through the window. I'm going through the glass. I'm getting in that house. He's running. He's running. He's running. Now, he's a great athlete, but at this point, he's been running as fast as he possibly can for an ungodly amount of time. He is just not giving it up, and he notices this corn is moving at the same pace. It's not giving it up either. At every passing streetlight, he catches another glimpse of its shadow, its big hulking figure, of it just ripping and tearing about 3 rows into the corn. And at this point, he can hear it because now it's getting tired too. And then he has a thought. What if I can't out-tire this thing? What if it wants to give up this chase? And at that moment, he sees his friend's house and he sees that there is one light on in the bedroom. So he's like, oh my gosh, somebody's home. Somebody's home. But if they don't open the door immediately, this thing has got me. I'm cooked. It's over. So he decides, am I going to jump through the glass? What am I going to do? He's running now. His friend has a privacy fence around the back of the yard. Right before he gets to his friend's house, a semi-truck comes up over the hill and he goes, oh my God, I'm going to jump in front of the semi-truck and just wave it down. I've not passed any cars this whole time. I'm just going to jump in front of the road and it's going to stop. I don't care if it hits me. Something's got to save me from what this thing is coming at me. He jumps in front of the semi-truck, and as he jumps in front of the semi-truck, he hears the corn break. He looks over. It is broke out of the corn, and now he has seen only what could be described as a true nightmare. Now, the judge said this was not a werewolf. It was not a Bigfoot. It was what he describes looking like Anubis, the god of death over there for Egypt. It had this big hulking body, but not a barrel chested like a man. It had a big rounded chest, kind of like a Doberman Pinscher has. And it had this really sleek back hair, and it had a really long snout. And he said you could see teeth hanging out of each side of it. And it was like, but the semi-truck light is casting all on it, and it's casting on him. The semi-truck does not even begin to slow down. So he goes, oh my God, it's going to run me over. So he jumps to the left of it. The semi-truck is now between him and it, and he knows it's right on the road, and he has looked for years for the semi-truck driver to see if he also saw it, but he's never been able to find the man. As soon as the semi-truck goes to pass him, he just takes off running. His friend's house is right behind him. And he knows if I go knock on this door and he doesn't open it immediately, or if the door's not unlocked, I'm done. So he jumps the fence. He climbs over the fence. And as he climbs over the fence, he sees his friend's pool in the backyard. And he just makes a split decision to head first dive into this pool. And as he dives into the pool, it's almost like his body's about to shut down on him all at once. And he stays under the pool, like at the bottom of it, for what he said felt like 5 minutes, but he goes, I know it was probably just 10 to 20 seconds. And I'm already exhausted. I already can't breathe. So I come up. I was just waiting on this thing to look at me over the pool and just yank me out of the water. And he comes up and he looks around the backyard. There's nothing there. So he tells himself, okay, I'm going straight for my friend's house. I'm going to open the door and I'm going in. He goes up to the friend's sliding back door, and he opens it, and it's not locked. He goes, oh my gosh, thank goodness. He turns around and he closes the door behind him and looks over and sees him and screams. And now he went from this most terrifying moment of his life to the most awkward and also terrifying moment of his life. And it's his other friend that's just trying to not die. He's fighting for his life. And he tells him, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And the friend is also, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And he goes, no, you got to shut the hell up. Call the police, call the police. And he didn't want the police to think he was crazy. So he said, just somebody is chasing me. Somebody is chasing me. They call the police, and while they're waiting on the police to get there, he goes, you can understand, you can't go outside. You can't go outside. This thing is after me. So he tells his friend what really happened. And his friend is still in shock because of what he was just doing. And he's just completely scared to death. But they take a peek outside the window while they're waiting on the police. And just on the other side of the interstate, they think they can see something looking at them out of the corn. This thing was standing on the other side of the highway still. And this time it had kind of hidden itself in the front row of the corn, but it was still peeking out of him. And he said he could see its chest. And its chest was still heaving with exhaustion. And then it sees that he is looking at it through the blind. And then it steps out of the corn so he can see it head to toe. Like, look at me. I am real. You did see what you saw. So him and his friends see this thing, and they're both just terrified, not knowing, what do you even do? And then it steps back into the corn and it walks away. The police got there. They were told it was a person that chased him, and they searched. They looked for footprints in the corn. They looked for broken corn. They couldn't find anything, but he was from a well-to-do rich family. They did believe him, supposedly. But they were told it was a person that chased him. They looked and looked, and this was back before security cameras or Ring doorbells, and they could not find any proof or, evidence that anybody had actually chased him. So they had to drop it. For the next 7 years, the judge refused to be outside at night because he said in his brain, at the back of his mind, he feels like this thing has got his scent, and that if he ever tries to go outside at night again, it's going to stalk him and just chase him and follow him. And that's a very important detail, because if you guys are big fans of Dogman, it's not a werewolf. Dogman, which is what he firmly believes it was, is what's known as a fear eater. Every Dogman story you hear, the Dogman always chases the person. It chases them, and harasses them, it scares them, but it never quite catches them. It's like it just wants to feed off that energy and that fear. And that brings us back to an important detail, because I believe they tell us the truth in pop culture. And when you watch Monsters, Inc., what do the monsters do, right? They don't want to eat the kids. They want to scare the kids. It's like they're getting power, getting fuel, getting fear off of that. And if you believe in the Bible and other different, things that talk about demons and stuff, it talks about how they feed off of fear. They feed off of that terror, that worry, that anxiety. And he believes that's exactly what this Dogman was and is. For 7 years, his life was changed. He said if he was out in town somewhere and it started to get dark, he was making sure that he was home. It really took a toll on his dating life and his whole personal history. Like, it just really changed his life for a long time. And then he said he just finally one day was over that fear and he just wanted to live his life like normal, and he's never had an encounter like that again. But in that area of Ohio on State Highway 4, the Dogman has been reported there more than any other place in the whole United States. For about the past 30 years, since the early 1980s to the late 1970s, there has been depictions of Dogman and werewolf, and no one truly knows why, with one exception. There's a lot of Indian burial grounds in Ohio, if you didn't know. Actually, one of the biggest Indian burial grounds in the whole United States is there. And they used to do a weird thing at those Indian burial grounds, if you didn't notice this. Have you ever heard of the black dog? They would bury dogs first, anytime they were going to bury a massive amount of their dead somewhere. And the dog, whatever was buried there first, was going to be the guardian. So they'd bury this dog there to protect that area. So maybe it's just chasing people away from that area. And maybe that cornfield had a burial ground in it somewhere, and it was just telling him, like, hey, don't be there. Because this was the first time he had ran at night, and it would be the last time he ran at night.
Locals in one part of Ohio have been warning about this creature for generations. And one man says he came face to face with it. The story was shared by Moses H. Whitlow. In southwest central Ohio is a region some locals call the Johnel Plain, an area known for its urban legends and cryptid sightings. For generations, the Amish, Mennonites, and other local residents have told stories about a creature they call the Johnel Plain Dogman. According to the stories, this isn't a werewolf. It isn't a human that transforms under a full moon. A dogman is said to always be a dogman. Witnesses describe it as a massive wolf-like creature that walks on two legs. They say its unusually high ankles bend so far when it runs that the backs of its lower legs press into the ground, leaving long, thin tracks in the mud or snow, sometimes stretching more than 1.5 feet. Those who claim to have seen one say its strange gait is unlike anything else, and once you've seen it, you'll recognize it from a distance. Moses says he never expected to see one himself. On July 3rd, 2026, he traveled to London, Ohio, to watch the city's fireworks before flying to West Virginia the next day to catch another fireworks show. He found a hill near Kenny Boulevard, surrounded by cornfields with a perfect view of fireworks lighting up the countryside. Just as the fireworks exploded, something massive burst from a patch of tall prairie grass between Danes Village Apartments and London High School. Moses says a large black figure swerved around families sitting in lawn chairs, bounded across Kenny Boulevard, and sprinted through an open field. Then it ran straight toward the hill where he was standing. Within seconds, it reached the top. It stopped, looked directly at him, and it unleashed what he described as a shriek that sounded like a demonic pterodactyl. For one brief moment, Moses said he saw it clearly. A 7-foot-tall wolf standing on two legs, jet black fur, long pointed ears, reflective yellow eyes, a triangular wolf-like head, and a broad muscular chest. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it took off like a bat out of hell, disappearing over the hill and across the cornfields toward Fairhaven and the Molly Agricultural Center. Moses says he spent days searching the area since then. He knows what the creature's tracks are supposed to look like, and he's determined to capture a photograph. So what do you think crossed those Ohio cornfields that night? Was it an unknown animal, a case of mistaken identity, or something locals have been warning about for generations?
I was hiking alone through a forgotten stretch of forest where the trees were so thick they swallowed the moonlight. Around midnight, something massive crashed through the brush behind me. I caught a glimpse of glowing amber eyes, far too high off the ground to belong to any wolf. Then another pair appeared. And another. There were 6 of them. They moved on 2 legs, standing over 7 feet tall, their shoulders broad and covered in black matted fur. Their yellow eyes never left me. They weren't chasing me to kill quickly. They were driving me deeper into the woods like predators playing with wounded prey. Every time I thought I'd escaped, one would step silently onto the trail ahead, forcing me to turn. They circled me for hours, their deep growls echoing through the trees. I could hear claws scraping bark just inches from my head as they climbed around me in the darkness. Just before dawn, I stumbled into an abandoned fire tower and slammed the rusted door shut behind me. Seconds later, something heavy crashed against the walls. The entire tower shook as they clawed at the metal, snarling with a sound that didn't belong to any animal. Then, silence. When the sun finally rose, they were gone. Or so I thought. As I climbed down the tower, I found enormous canine footprints surrounding it. In the center of them was a single message scratched into the dirt with 4 deep claw marks. Run. I never went back, but sometimes late at night I wake to the sound of distant howls outside my window.
According to a soldier who was once stationed at Fort Campbell, his unit was once sent into the Kentucky wilderness on a live fire mission hunting something that absolutely terrified even the higher-ups. Now, this story was sent to me by a follower who claims this happened in the early 2000s while he was stationed at Fort Campbell. And now, according to him, he still doesn't fully know what they were looking for out there or what was really going on, but he said that his unit had just returned from nearly 2 weeks being out in the field, and everyone was exhausted, they were dirty, sleep deprived, hungry, and they had finally gotten a 4-day weekend that was approved and they could relax a little bit. So naturally, everybody went back to the barracks and they were ready to relax. But only a few hours later, they got recalled immediately to go back. No explanations, and according to him, the mood inside that company area changed fast. And he said normally when they got, spun up for some type of training exercise, leadership would usually stay calm and really professional. But this time he said even the officers looked really nervous and concerned at whatever was going on. Like genuinely nervous. And that's what scared him and a couple of the other guys, because according to him, these were men who had already deployed before multiple times and they were pretty unbreakable and, men who normally never showed fear. Yet suddenly everyone was rushing around, loading gear, checking radios, issuing live ammunition and avoiding questions. And then they were finally told what was happening. Well, at least partially. So officially, they were being sent into the Kentucky-Tennessee wilderness for what leadership described as a live fire search and rescue mission. But according to him, none of it made any sense because search and rescue missions don't usually involve giving every single soldier live rounds and explicitly authorizing deadly force. And if you've been out there, you know. And yet, that's exactly what had happened that night. And he said that they deployed into the woods sometime around 2-3 in the morning. It was pitch black. And the second that they stepped off into the tree line, he knew that something was up. He just felt it. And so did a bunch of the other guys because the woods were silent. Not like normal nighttime quiet. I mean, completely dead. No insects, no frogs, no owls. There was absolutely nothing to be heard out there. And what he said next was, he grew up hunting in the woods and he immediately recognized that kind of silence. And it's the kind that only happens when predators are nearby. So when the woods get quiet, that's when you need to listen. And as they continued moving deeper into the forest, the atmosphere became heavier and heavier, he said. And he said it's really hard to explain unless you've experienced it yourself. But it genuinely felt evil out there. And that was exactly the word that he used, was it felt evil. Like something was following them just outside of the tree line, just outside their line of sight, watching them and waiting for them. Now, a few hours into the mission, they reportedly started finding things scattered throughout the woods, like shreds of clothing, pieces of camping gear, all things like that, food rations, and eventually they found a destroyed tent. And according to him, there were dark stains all over it, consistent with red stuff. And that's when people started getting seriously uneasy, but leadership refused to explain who exactly they were searching for or what was really happening or what had already happened. And then sometime close to dawn is when they first heard it. So he said a sound that he said that he still hears in his nightmare. He could still feel it. He described it as this horrible mix between a screech and a deep hooting noise echoing through the trees. Not a coyote, not an owl, not anything normal or anything that he is familiar with. But he said that it sounded really, really big. And the noise echoed through the woods multiple times from different directions, like whatever was making it was either circling them or there was multiple of them. But every time that they were trying to track it, everything would go quiet again and they would have to start back over from square one. Then the sun finally came up and suddenly the forest returned to to its normal daytime routine, right? Birds chirping, wind moving through the trees, completely different atmosphere. But according to him, the second night was even worse than the first one. So, once darkness returned that night, the woods went silent yet again. And this time, every single person in his unit felt it, right? The night before, there was some that were like, oh, everyone's crazy. But tonight, they all knew something was really wrong. That feeling of being watched. And he said even the toughest guys that he knew stopped joking around by then and they were taking it seriously and nobody wandered off alone. Nobody slept properly. Now in the army, yeah, we have the buddy system, right? A battle buddy for those that know. But there was something else going on. Throughout that night, a foul smell would drift through their patrol base, and he described it as a rotten animal-like odor that would appear out of nowhere. It would linger for a few minutes, and then it would completely disappear, and it would move around. It wasn't like it was in one spot. Nobody could figure out where it was coming from, and then while some of the guys were awake pulling security, rocks started landing inside of their patrol base. Like not pebbles falling from trees or, I'm talking like rocks, like big rocks, they said. And they were being thrown. And at first everyone assumed that it was another soldier maybe messing around, but the rocks kept coming from different directions around their perimeter. And every time that they checked the area, they found nothing. And then the sound started back up, right? Not just the screech that they were hearing. Yeah, those were there too. But now they were hearing, this like hooting, hollering, almost like voices. And according to him, there were at least 2 or 3 different sets of calls coming from separate locations in the woods that night. And what unnerved him most was how it sounded like they were communicating with one another. So there was definitely more than one of whatever was out there. And one call would echo through the trees, and then another would answer farther away, and then a third. And it would keep going back and forth like something was coordinating movements around their position. And he's like, I truly felt like we were going to be ambushed, is what he said. And he said the entire patrol base sat awake and listened to that for hours that night. Nobody wanting to be, the first person to admit it, how scared they actually were. And then on the final night of that mission, one of the soldiers on watch supposedly opened fire into the woods after claiming that he saw something standing upright between the trees and it was reflecting light back at him. But according to my follower, whatever he saw was never officially acknowledged and documented. So the next morning, they were abruptly pulled out of the area in order not to discuss the mission again, and they were given no explanation. There was no debrief except for that one soldier, and nothing else went beyond that point. He said the strangest part came afterwards because after about several weeks later, one of the NCOs quietly admitted to him that there had never been any missing person at all that night. So tell me what you guys think in the comments. If there was no rescue mission, then what exactly was that unit sent into the woods to find or to do? Something was communicating out there in the darkness and watching them from the tree line. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know that there are a bunch of other accounts of soldiers that had similar experiences at Fort Polk, not just only at Fort Campbell. I know at Fort Benning too. I've heard a few at Fort Jackson. I know of one at Fort Drum. So let me know what you guys think in the comments if you were stationed there or if you had heard anything about any of those bases.
Liz still thinks about the thing her mother saw out near the property in East Texas last year. What unsettled her most wasn't just the size of it, it was the way her mother described its behavior afterwards. Her mom had never really believed in cryptids, monsters, or anything supernatural. She was practical, grounded, and not the type to exaggerate stories. That alone made the encounter hard for Liz to dismiss. The property sat in a rural, wooded area of East Texas. One night, her mother realized she had forgotten to plug in the hot wire fence before dark. The dogs had started giving off a low, uneasy growl, which pushed her to head outside with a flashlight to take care of it. As she walked near the tiny house on the property, the beam of her flashlight caught something standing in the dark. At first, she thought it might have been a massive wolf or maybe even a mountain lion, but the longer she looked at it, the less sense that explanation made. The creature stood incredibly tall, easily around 4 feet at the shoulders, and its upper body looked unbelievably broad and muscular. Their large Rottweiler looked tiny beside it. And at this point, I want to mention, when she said it was 4 feet at the shoulders, this creature had all 4 paws, or whatever they were, on the ground. Feet. What disturbed her most was the way it acted. The dogs were uneasy and clearly intimidated, but the creature paid absolutely no attention to them. It didn't bark, growl, or even react aggressively. Instead, it stayed completely locked onto her mom, watching her every movement with an intense focus that made her feel like she was being tracked. Keeping the flashlight fixed on it, she slowly backed away while yelling for Liz's grandmother to bring her phone. Even as she moved, the thing never broke eye contact. At one point, she estimated she was only about 6 feet away from it. She later admitted that she nearly panicked and ran inside, but forced herself to stay calm as she retreated step by step. Then, once Liz's grandmother finally came outside with the phone, the creature simply turned and walked back into the darkness. It didn't panic, it didn't rush, and it never once acknowledged the dogs. It just left. To this day, Liz's mother says she has never seen anything remotely like it before, and while plenty of people might insist it was just some large animal wandering through the woods, Liz can't shake the details that don't seem to fit. The impossible size, the posture, and especially the way it ignored everything except her mother.
Turning the lights out, and he remembered he needed to let the dog out, their dog Clancy. He came out of the kitchen into the dining room. The dog was already sitting there staring out the back sliding glass door at something outside. He walks over, he slides the door open, says, "Okay, come on, go." And the dog just sat there, didn't budge. And this was unusual for Clancy because he always would just bolt out the door. He would do his business and come back in. Rick thought this was really odd that the dog was acting like this. So he turns, he looks out the back sliding door, and he's trying to figure out what the dog is seeing and why he won't go outside. And right then, the dog went ballistic. Barking, yelping, whimpering, just going crazy and staring straight outside, looking at something. He wasn't sure what he was seeing. And then right then, his wife, Kathy, comes to the top of the stairs from the bedroom and says, "What is going on down there?" And he says, "I'm not sure. I think the dog saw a coyote or a deer or something. I don't know. I'll take care of it." She goes, "Okay, just don't wake the kids up." He finally gets the dog to settle down. And the dog is just sitting there, and he's got the door open, and he's trying to get the dog to do his business. So he goes, "Okay, well, go. Just go." And the dog wouldn't budge. So he turned and started closing the sliding glass door. And right at that moment, he felt this feeling of dread come over him, like something was watching him, and it was threatening. And it was just this kind of a startling feeling. And he didn't know what to do with it, so he just kind of scanned the backyard again, looking for anything that could be out there. Didn't see anything, so he turns and he goes, "Okay, come on." And he had the dog come upstairs with him to their bedroom, and he was going to have the dog sleep up there with him. So the next morning, Rick gets up, goes downstairs with the dog. Kathy's already in the kitchen making coffee. He goes through the dining room, opens up the back slider. Dog goes straight out the door like normal. Like everything's fine. It's a nice day out. Rick thinks, okay, everything seems normal now. I don't know. Maybe I was making a little bit more of things last night. It just felt really weird. About a week later, it was early evening. They'd all just finished dinner, and Rick and Kathy were in the kitchen putting away the dishes, and they heard from upstairs Danny, and he was yelling, and he was coming down the stairs at the same time. He goes, "I just saw something run across the backyard." Rick came out of the kitchen, came to the bottom of the stairs and said, "What do you mean you saw something? What did you see?" And he goes, "It looked like a wolf running on 2 feet. It was really big and it ran through the backyard." And Rick said, "Where is it now?" And he goes, "It ran back into the woods. I'm not sure." And he thought, well, he misperceived something. He was exaggerating. He's a good kid. He doesn't lie, but something wasn't right. They weren't sure what it was. And so he said, "Can you describe it anymore?" And he said, it looked really big, and it was running. And this really shook Danny up. Danny said, I want to sleep in your room tonight on the floor with my sleeping bag because I don't want to go back in my room. And so he slept in the room for the next week. He was so shaken up by this. And Rick, at that time, downstairs, and then I went to the dining room to let Clancy out to do his business, open up the door. The dog went straight out, and within a matter of 20, 30 seconds, he started barking at something behind the woodpile. Going crazy, going ballistic, and he was just zero focused on something behind the woodpile, possibly in the woods. You couldn't quite tell. And she was yelling for Clancy, like, Clancy, get back in here. Come in here now. And the dog was not listening, so she ran out in her bare feet to go get the dog. And she was heading for this woodpile. And right before she got to the woodpile, she heard this commotion and this thrashing somewhere behind the woodpile. Couldn't see the dog, and possibly in the woods right there in the tree line. And she could hear the dog still barking, and the dog was engaged with something. And she wasn't sure if the dog was being attacked or the dog was attacking something. Right before she got to the woodpile and was going to go around it, she heard this yelp from Clancy. Just startled her. And just moments later, the dog came hobbling around the corner of the woodpile towards Kathy. She was really concerned for her dog, and then she looked and she saw blood on the back of the dog. Couldn't tell what was going on, but it startled her so much she screamed. She reached over, grabbed the collar of the dog, and turned to try to get the dog to go into the house as quickly as possible. There was still something back there. She didn't know what it was. The kids started coming out the door, and they were yelling, What's wrong, Mom? What's wrong? And she said, go back in the house. It's okay. I got it. I got the dog. I'm coming in. And so the kids went back in. She went in with the dog. And once she got inside with the dog, she saw that the hind quarter of the dog had a big bite on it, as well as the shoulder, back and shoulder. Rick was listening to this, and he comes back, and before he could sit down, he was just looking outside, and something that seemed right. And then he realized it looked like a tall man standing in front of the woodpile, motionless, staring right back at him. It was like this big gray silhouette. And it wasn't moving. And right then, it took a step forward. And he knew this was what Danny had seen and what attacked their dog Clancy. And he studied it, looked at it. He was standing in the dark in the dining room, and he saw these fairly tall pointed ears and this somewhat of a pronounced snout on it. Not quite a dog, but almost like a bear. Not quite sure. And yet it looked like a man at the same time, standing there. He looked down at the baseball bat, reached down and grabbed it, and he thought, there's no way I can just burst outside and go take this thing on. It looked huge. It had to be almost 6 feet tall. Really wide as well. He was feeling this sense of fear and this anxiety and stress and all that had happened. And he's not sure what to do because he doesn't want to confront this thing head on. And yet he doesn't want to leave his family vulnerable. So he thought, okay, I can dial 911, get some help, get some backup at least, and then keep an eye on this thing. And then if it does attack the house, I'll do whatever I have to do to protect my family. So he backs up, turns just for a moment to get the phone off the small table just outside the kitchen, dials 911, and then he turns and looks, and this thing is now gone. He's shaking his head, and then the phone is ringing, and he's thinking, okay, well, I can't just tell them, I saw this.
What is that? It's like eye shine. Whistle? Whistling was a bad idea.
People, if you're driving this time of night, keep your eye on those shoulders. Folks are saying they've seen eyes glowing in the dark and something tall, canine, standing upright just beyond the tree line. I don't know if this is a hoax or not, but if you're headed north tonight, I'd keep those doors locked and the high beams ready. Dogman sightings are picking up all across Michigan. First near Elk Rapids, out by Short's Brewing Facility, and now reports are coming in from as far south as the Ambassador Bridge.
Oh, are you reading me? Come in. Hello?
Thank you for watching. If these Dogman encounters sent a chill down your spine, make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments below. As always, stay safe, stay aware, question everything, and remember, out there in those woods, something might be watching.